So thank you, everyone. Maybe some questions have come in, and I'm happy to have those in the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Yes, we've been noting some questions. And so one of the questions following up on your recent comment is, how do you develop the cultural competence needed for international business careers?
Sure. I think people are lifelong learners, and one thing is to be sure is that I've been working in the field of international business in education, anyways, for 18 years. I don't consider myself an expert. I don't consider myself having global competence. I don't think there's really such an end goal. And so the other piece of that that's challenging is that cultures are always changing. Cultures are not static. And so I think the goal is to have enough knowledge to know what you don't know, so that when you approach a new situation, you have somewhat of a considered perspective, and you take the time to understand what's happening in that frame of time that you're actually working in, and collect and move thoughtfully and methodically. I mean, that's really what the competence is around, is having a good perspective that you're bringing to the table.
Great. Are there particular areas in international business that are strong growth areas or where there's a lot of demand?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, what we're seeing, if you look at the WTO, it's kind of been locked up since the year 2000. If you look at Trump trade policy vis-a-vis China, and how the Biden administration is kind of planning to also stay along those lines in terms of actively managing trade. One area that's ripe for growth is the idea of trade compliance. Now, it can get technical, but to me, I always look at technical aspects as job security. If you in a world where everyone's competing, if you have these specific knowledge domains that are in a sense a credential that provide some platform for growth. So I would say if you can get into the active side of and a lot of trade is law. So trade law, trade compliance, which comes from not only the supply side, but internally within the firm, because you're bound kind of by two governments. You're worried about the rules and regulations and the compliance on the country you're importing from, and you're worried about your own internal markets concerns about compliance and safety and all that. So export compliance is a big, I think, area for growth. And of course, which is a really good thing, ESG, the environmental, social, and governance aspects around business are going to grow. So I think there's, and again, supply chains are very global in nature. So I think there's lots of opportunities for people to become better stewards, knowledgeable stewards of resources, and comfortable navigating how to source, ensure human rights, are being protected with suppliers and working operations, thinking about all these new frontiers of better governance, ethics, and that comes back to compliance as well. So I think that's an opportunity. Again, this pandemic has, of course, created strange times where it's put the economy and global integrations a little bit on pause. But I also see, of course, a lot of room for global marketing, because firms do want to, the leaders of a firm have a fiduciary responsibility to serve the investors, and the investors will want the growth. And so they'll need to enter a foreign market. So there's opportunities across business, but especially I would say in marketing, as you saw here from just the explosive growth for Google services as an example in India.
Thank you. How would you advocate for language study in the business curriculum?
Sure. Well, we're lucky in a sense, I think, at Wisconsin, where so many of our students come in with some grounding in a language already. And I think the bigger piece that I'm struggle with is not that students don't study language, is that they are typically studying these languages where the growth rates, I'm just wearing my business hat here. We can talk about my perspective as a citizen also, but there can be nothing wrong with studying languages, but I think what we're trying to advance through the business school is exactly what WISLI and some of the LCTL agenda is about understanding that there's a lot of growth and possibilities in these markets, and we need students to develop some skills in these languages and exposure to those markets and their cultures.
And what are some of the job titles that folks might want to use if they're interested in finding jobs in international business, or what types of career areas might they be looking at?
Sure. So even for our international business majors, it's not like some of our international business majors do go on right away and get recruited at global advertising firms or in a role that's international, meaning domiciled in a different country. Sometimes they get international roles in the U.S. that have that international responsibility. But usually, what happens in people's careers is they need to develop, in a sense, a repertoire of knowledge about an industry, and because when you're working internationally, you are dealing with more ambiguity. You're oftentimes navigating uncertain territories. Firms kind of want to see you as a proven asset first. And so the advice I usually have for students, and I know it sounds cliche, but kind of follow your passions and do something that you're excited about. And business is, almost everything is a business or runs like a business, right? So the government has revenue, the government has expenses. Healthcare systems have revenues, they have costs. Higher education, we have revenues and we have costs. So many things are like a business, and to keep that in mind, and especially with generational change in the workforce, there's going to be lots of opportunities. A lot of people in the U.S. have held on to their jobs, waiting for the stock market to ascend to where it is now, because healthcare advancements let them live longer lives. But at some point, they will have to stop working, and that's going to create a big opportunity across the board for people to jump in and have expanding responsibilities within these firms. So I would say try to choose something that you're really passionate about, and then those opportunities will, and make yourself known that you're interested in that, but also to be a little bit patient, because that first opportunity might not be international, but eventually you can work your way there. And again, going back to the PwC report, we see more and more firms creating opportunities to respond to the demands of their talent and wanting that global profile and global travel and connections with others in their work.
Well, thank you so much, Sachin, for taking out the time and sharing this presentation with us. We are so happy to have you join us today. And please join me in thanking Sachin for his presentation.